one of the things we need to take into account when selecting not only course books, but any type of materials, and that goes for authentic materials, it's if you have an employer, you need to take the employer into consideration, right? So some of the factors that lead schools to either adopt a course book or not adopt a course book, and the teachers develop and find all the materials they need. All of those things happen depending on what kind of job you end up having. But you always have to bear in mind the view of learning of the institution that you're working for, if you're working for an institution. So what do you understand by the view of learning?
Well, some educators are of the mindset that if you aren't using a textbook, you're not really teaching. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a very limited point of view, but I think there are some people that feel that way.
And the other way around as well, right?
Mm.
You might end up working for a school that has a very a different approach to teaching, that teaching grammar explicitly will not be compatible with the school's philosophy, with the school's beliefs of how people learn and how students should get access to information and practice, right? So being aware of that is important. If your school has a strong task-based learning focus, and your course book is based on grammar translation, or the material or the course book is based on grammar translation, it might not be a good idea to use that one this time. Yeah, because otherwise you're going to spend so much time adapting everything that might as well not have it. Yeah. But you also need to bear in mind and take into consideration the resources available for your lessons, especially now that we're doing everything online. Sometimes there are great printed resources that you cannot share with the students. The time it's going to take. Course books from Pearson, Cambridge, Oxford University Press, those type of course books, they are usually designed to be used in a course of about 80 to 100 hours on average. Yeah. So sometimes you might one course book might be used throughout an academic year, or it can be used in a more intensive way. And the number of students is also important. Yeah, if you're teaching one-to-one and you're looking and you have activities or course books that are based on group work, and also the overall environment, right? But it's important also to know the learner's context. So what is it that the learner needs from the course book? I heard someone talking about business English students, right? It was this Sarah, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kind of materials do you use with the business English students?
Because they're doing a computer coding course, and the idea is after that they'll look for jobs with international companies. So we've only just started, really. We're 3 weeks in. I'm looking at ways to prepare them for the job market, so CVs, real job adverts, also things like TED Talks, stuff to do with the business environment, that kind of thing.
Great. So clearly, the material that Sarah uses is completely different from the material that would be used in a primary school or in a elementary school, right? And not just because of age, yes, because of age, but also because of the interests of the learners, the level of proficiency they have. Yeah, TED Talks are great. What kind of adaptations do you need to make to that material if your student is not an upper intermediate advanced student? Those are all things we need to bear in mind, right? The academic educational level also plays a part, and the motivation of the learner. Yeah, sometimes, and then I think this is probably the factor that weighs the most in Elizabeth's frustration of not being able to get out of the course book, right?
My students are motivated
motivated.
My students are motivated, and I'm motivated, and so we make it work. But
Great. So there is not, you will never find the best course book, the best activity, the best website with resources for teachers. You will find the best course book for that specific group of students in that moment of their development. Yeah. So the more you open up the range of knowledge, all the different types of materials you have, the wider the range of students that you'll be able to help more successfully, right? Good. Reasons for learning are all, it's connected to all of that, right? Are they learning for a job interview? So then you need to be very specific in the materials you select, maybe videos, including real job interviews, material for, I mean, nobody's going to take a whole course just for a job interview, are they? It's a whole range of factors. Although I have to say, I had the coolest student with a specific reason for learning once, which was back in Brazil, an actress who had been nominated for an Emmy. And then I worked with her for 2 months to prepare her acceptance speech.
Wow.
that's
Wow.
awesome.
And she didn't win.
Did she win? Did she get to give the speech?
No, she didn't.
Oh,
She didn't. But she was ready.
that's a strong motivation.
Yeah. So then obviously the materials we used, I couldn't find anything on published materials, right? So it was basically watching acceptance speeches, analyzing them together. Can we get specialized in that? That's so cool. All right. Let's focus a little bit on the course book, right? Let's say you decide to adopt a course book, or you have the freedom to choose a course book. When you choosing a course book is one of the hardest things that you can do as a teacher, because the consequences are really long term, right? So I'm just going to give you, we don't need to go into a lot of detail if you don't want to, but I just want you to have access to it. So I'm going to make sure that I'll send the slides to Kate as well, so you have access to it later on if you want to check it out. But I did some research on, okay, so what should be there in a course book for the course book to be acceptable? Yeah, and those are some of the factors. This is from 2002, so I'm going to ask you in a minute, how do you think that has changed since 2002? But in this article, encouraging learner autonomy, the language is functional and contextualized. So the course book shouldn't be Unit 1, the present perfect. It should be Unit 1, describing past experiences. And then the present perfect is part of the picture. Yeah. The language development requires use of the language. So it's not just reading about it and doing exercises about it, it's actually engaging in some sort of communication. Language should be realistic and authentic, include audiovisual component, develop students' ability to deal with written and spoken genres, yeah, and engages learners both affectively and cognitively. So makes the students think and talks about topics and things that are intrinsic, motivating, and relevant to students. This is 2002. We're in 2021 now. Would you add anything as a desired feature? Or remove one of those things you think is not relevant anymore?
I think it basically is still relevant, all that it says, but maybe we should include some things related to the new technologies, the online technologies, the internet, or the language we use with the phones, with the iPhones, for example, like writing texts or online chats like we're doing now. So these things may be relevant for the use of English.
I know. It definitely is. Yeah.
Mm.
So if you get a 2002 course book that doesn't have lots of, it's not just having digital content, but having content that can be easily shared with the students, or that students can interact with. I think this is another desired feature there. So I don't know, maybe access to an online platform where students, electronic workbooks instead of paper workbooks, so students can do activities with listening that integrate skills. Yeah. In the school sector, right? So if you're talking about mainstream education, some concepts like STEM and CLIO have been building up momentum lately, right? So integrating things, so that the English, ideally for many schools nowadays, the English lesson is not just gonna teach English, but integrate the knowledge of teaching with mathematics, with geography, with history and biology. Yeah. So those are some of the features that are becoming more and more important nowadays. Great. Now, this is what's desired. How do you check whether the course book has those features or not? Let's say a student hires you and they say, I want to have I feel confidence on paper, I confide in paper, I mean, I like paper. I want to have a course book, and you're going to choose one. What will you look for? How will you make that decision?
Well, the publishers have previews with sample chapters, and because I was given, between two, and I was able to go and look and then go, oh, I think this approach is going to be better for the students that I have, the way the language was presented, the way that exercises were designed.
Any other thoughts?
Reviews.
Reviews?
Yeah, user reviews. How other people find it.
What about activities? Because this is talking about course books, right? Is it the same thing about activities? Do you find it easy to get recommendation of what activities to do and things like that?
Some teaching platforms I've noticed have a like, so you can see how many people have liked them, and some do have user comments. And often the ones that are liked are the more effective, better ones. Like, for example, on games and things like that, where you can create your own.
Yeah. And share. Yeah, there are some online games. I mean, even Kahoot, that you've probably heard of. Kahoot, Whisk Online. There are some online game platforms that you can create your own game, even if you're not a programmer, right? I mean, I managed to, and when I touch a computer, it usually stops working. So there are platforms that allow you to create easy games, easy practice activities, and share it with the community of teachers who uses that platform. The flip side, you can also use and browse through all of the activities that those people used and those people created, the other members of the community. Very interesting point, Sarah.